My name is Evelyn Reed, I'm 29. After several weeks in a clinic recovering from severe burnout, I was discharged a day early. I wanted to surprise my husband, Liam. He's only 26, and I knew how hard this time had been for him. But the surprise was waiting for me. I slipped quietly into our house in Seattle and went upstairs to the bedroom. And what I saw there, strangely, my first reaction wasn't despair. Not anger. Just an icy, crystal-clear calm. I didn't say a word. I didn't even slam the door. I simply turned around, walked out of the house, and got into a taxi. He thought I knew nothing. He had no idea that I knew everything. And that his betrayal wasn't his mistake. It was part of my plan. Liam and I began 4 years ago at an industry expo in Chicago. At the time I worked at Apex Pharma, selling medical equipment. I had spent years working hard to build a career, and I truly believed my work helped doctors get better tools to save lives. The expo was packed. I was reaching for a cup of coffee when I literally bumped into him. He turned out to be a rising star in marketing at a competing firm, charming, self-assured, with a disarming smile. Liam had a rare gift. He could listen in a way that made everyone feel like the center of the universe. He was ambitious, incredibly smart, and, surprisingly for a man in an expensive suit, very funny. Well, even the coffee decided it was time we met, he joked, helping me wipe a few drops from the table. That same evening he asked me to dinner, and that's how it all started. Our romance was like a fairy tale. A year later he proposed at sunset on Lake Tahoe, and 6 months after that we had a small but beautiful wedding for our closest family and friends. We bought a house in a quiet Seattle suburb, charming, with 4 bedrooms and a garden I loved to fuss over on weekends. Both our careers were on the rise. We planned to have kids in a year or two, but first we wanted to travel a bit. Kyoto, New Zealand, and Barcelona were on our list. Our life was perfect. We hosted dinners for friends, joined a tennis club, and split holidays between my parents and his. I had never been so happy and was sure Liam felt the same. The first warning signs appeared about 6 months ago. I was working on a major project, taking on more and more responsibility, and hardly resting. Gradually I began to feel completely drained, but I chalked it up to ordinary fatigue. The breaking point came one morning when I simply couldn't get out of bed from exhaustion. The doctors diagnosed acute burnout and insisted on several weeks of complete rest in a clinic under supervision. I remember sitting in the room, Liam gripping my hand, promising we would get through this together. In that moment I was so grateful for his support, certain that with him I could endure anything. At first, Liam was the embodiment of care. He drove me to appointments, read everything he could find about my condition, and even joined an online support group for loved ones. He cooked when I had no appetite and held me when I couldn't sleep. But as the weeks passed, I noticed him changing. Liam stayed late at work more and more, citing urgent projects. Our conversations grew short and shallow, mostly about how I felt and my medications. What we initially took for severe fatigue turned out to be a more complex, lingering problem that required ongoing consultations with specialists. Financial strain piled onto the emotional stress. Even with good insurance, our medical expenses kept growing. I had to cut back my hours, and our income took a noticeable hit. Liam never complained out loud, but I saw him frown at the bills and sigh heavily at each new pharmacy receipt. I tried to keep the spark in our relationship, planning at-home date nights when I felt better. Sometimes he agreed, but more often he said he was tired and went to blow off steam with colleagues. I told myself he just needed a break from our home, which increasingly resembled a hospital room. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. 3 weeks ago my condition worsened, and the doctor insisted on immediate hospitalization. When Liam drove me to the hospital, he looked almost pleased. He promised he would come every day. For the first week he kept his word, bringing me books and magazines. But by the second week his visits became rare and brief. He always had a solid reason, a meeting, a deadline. His parents urgently needed help. Lying alone in my room, I watched other patients' families bring homemade food and sit for hours at their bedside. And I waited. "It's just chaos at work right now, Evelyn," he'd say, popping in for 10 minutes. "You can't imagine the mess." I nodded, pretending not to notice how he constantly checked his phone and looked relieved when visiting hours neared their end. I kept telling myself that everything would get better once I came home. That as soon as I was healthy again, he'd see me as his wife, not a burden. I clung to that hope, mentally planning how we'd reconnect once I was discharged. I didn't yet know that Liam had already found his own way of coping. A way that would raise our marriage to the ground. The morning of my discharge began as usual, blood pressure, labs, waiting for rounds. When Dr. Chase finally came in with his tablet, I was prepared to hear the usual instructions and confirmation that I'd be discharged tomorrow. "Evelyn, I have excellent news," he said with a smile. "Your latest tests look very good. All your numbers have stabilized. I see no reason to keep you another night. We can discharge you today." I couldn't believe my ears. "Today? I can go home today?" "Absolutely," he confirmed. "You'll still need to come in for treatments a couple of times a week, but there's no need to stay in the hospital." While Nurse Maria helped me pack and rattled off medication instructions, an idea took shape in my head. "I should call Liam and tell him I'll be home early," I said, reaching for my phone. Maria smiled. "Or you could surprise him." "My husband loves surprises," I lied. But the idea instantly took root. Lately Liam had been so tired, so distant. Maybe my sudden return would help us grow close again? I pictured his joy, the two of us ordering dinner from our favorite Italian place and starting over with a glass of wine. "You know what? I'll do it," I said, putting my phone away. I called a taxi so I wouldn't bother Liam. The driver tried to make small talk the whole way, congratulating me on being discharged, but I answered curtly. My thoughts were already at home. I rehearsed how I'd open the door and say, "Surprise." When the taxi turned onto our street, I saw a red Volvo parked next to Liam's gray Audi. Probably a colleague dropping by, I thought, though a chill ran through me. I paid the driver and, still weak after the hospital, slowly walked to the house. I unlocked the door quietly with my key, getting ready to shout surprise as soon as I was inside. But the moment I crossed the threshold, I froze. I heard laughter. A woman's laughter. Followed by Liam's answering laugh, a sound I would recognize anywhere. Don't jump to conclusions, I told myself, though my heart was hammering. I left my bag by the door and walked into the living room. Everything was in its place, our wedding photo on the mantel, my collection of vintage perfume bottles on the shelf. Everything was as usual. Except for the sounds now clearly drifting from upstairs. From our bedroom. Some force beyond my control pulled me up the stairs. My head refused to accept the obvious, but my heart already knew what I would find. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Voices came through the gap. His. And hers, Olivia from his department. Their laughter. From our bedroom. The very room where I had spent so many sleepless nights battling my illness. Where he had promised to stay by my side. Olivia. Of course. The petite blonde who could always find a reason to touch his arm at work events. The one who looked at me with such fake sympathy at Christmas, while her eyes held a cold gleam of triumph. Time in the hallway seemed to stop. I looked through the crack and saw everything with a frightening, unnatural clarity. Our wedding photo on the nightstand was turned face down. My pillow lay on the floor in the corner. And Liam's wedding ring sat on the dresser. But the strangest thing was my own reaction. Inside, there was no scream, no urge to burst into the room. Only a cold, detached calm, as if I were watching someone else's drama from afar. And in that silence I finally understood. All his working late. All his distracted answers. The gulf that had opened between us. Everything fell into place. I stood at the door for 10 seconds at most, but it felt like an eternity. Neither of them noticed me. I turned without a sound and went back down the stairs. Once outside, I just walked, not knowing where. My mind was completely blank. I should be crying, I thought. But there were no tears. Only a numbness that scared me more than any pain. Without realizing how, I reached the park where Liam and I loved to walk. I sat on a bench by the pond and took out my phone. 3 unread messages. All from him. Hope your treatment went well today. Text me if you need me to bring anything tomorrow. Can't wait for you to come home. I miss you. A dry, humorless laugh escaped me. He wrote that while he was with her. Crafting the perfect alibi of a caring husband. And then a thought pierced me, how long had this been going on? Did it start when I got sick? Or had our perfect life been a lie from the beginning? Sitting on that bench, the numbness gave way to a cold, ringing quiet inside. I decided I wouldn't reply. Let him think I knew nothing. Let him have one more night certain that his double life had worked. Tomorrow would come very soon. And with it, the time to make decisions I never imagined I'd have to make. That evening I checked into the Emerald City Hotel, using a credit card Liam almost never looked at. The front desk clerk gave me a sympathetic look when I said I had no luggage. Just for one night, I said, though I had no idea how long I would need. The room was ordinary but clean. The bed felt unbearably huge for one person. In the silence of the hotel room, I finally let my emotions out. First came outrage, hot and fierce. Then it gave way to a deep, hollow sadness. I cried, mourning the shattering of all my hopes and the future I had believed in. But by morning, after a long night, the emotions had subsided, and a surprising clarity filled my head. I remembered my grandmother's words when my grandfather left her, "Don't make lifetime plans when you're at the peak of emotion." Her advice couldn't have come at a better time. I realized I needed to act with a cool head. After ordering breakfast, I opened a legal website on my tablet and began reading Washington state divorce law. Community property, grounds for dissolution, the financial consequences of infidelity. I took notes with the same meticulousness I once used to study a new medical device. Then I called Chloe. Just in case, I dialed from the room's landline. "Evelyn, where are you?" she asked immediately. "Liam blew up my phone last night looking for you. I need your help. But first promise you won't do anything without my say-so." After hearing my story, Chloe exploded into a stream of furious words about Liam. "I'm going to find him right now and tell him exactly that's exactly what we're not going to do," I cut her off firmly. "We have to act with a cool head. I need you to be careful. And I need a place to stay," I went on. Chloe, who's a lawyer herself, flipped from emotion to business mode instantly. "You can stay with me as long as you need. And call Anna Vance right now. She handled my cousin's divorce last year. In court she's a shark, but she treats her clients like family." I booked an appointment with Anna the same day, grateful that Chloe was on my side. Next, I dug into our finances. I logged into our shared cloud drive where we kept important documents. What I found made my heart stop. Over the last 4 months, Liam had been quietly siphoning small amounts, careful not to raise suspicion, from our joint savings into a personal account I hadn't known existed. It added up to almost $15,000. He had also opened a new credit card in his name. The statements were peppered with bills from expensive restaurants and hotels on the very nights he supposedly worked late. But the worst was something else. I found his correspondence with a realtor. Just 2 weeks after I was admitted to the clinic, he was already discussing a possible sale of our house, explaining that he needed to offload assets quickly due to personal circumstances. He had been methodically and cold-bloodedly planning his exit while I, isolated from the world, was trying to recover. Now I had the full picture of his betrayal. And it was far more calculated than I'd imagined. I downloaded all the documents and sent copies to myself and Chloe. Then, still using the hotel business center, I logged into Liam's email. The password had been recklessly saved on our shared tablet. Everything was there. Dozens of emails between him and Olivia over the past 5 months. Sweet nothings, intimate photos, plans for a shared future. Olivia complained she was tired of being second. And Liam assured her it was temporary. As soon as Evelyn's condition stabilizes, I'll file for divorce, he wrote just 3 weeks ago. She's too weak right now. The doctors say any major stress could trigger a flare-up. And I understood. His care wasn't about me. It was about him. He didn't want to look like the villain who abandoned his wife in need. He wanted to play the noble, suffering husband who did everything he could before leaving with a heavy heart. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing. Liam's panic grew by the hour. The clinic said you were discharged. Where are you? Evelyn, I'm starting to worry. Call me. I went to the clinic, you weren't there. Are you okay? I've called all our friends. Just let me know you're safe. The last message was the peak of his lies. I spent the whole day looking for you. No one knows where you went. If you don't respond within an hour, I'm filing a missing person report. His audacity was almost impressive. He was already crafting the image of a devoted husband frantically searching for his wife, not the man who'd spent the previous day in bed with someone else. I typed one short reply, I'm safe. Don't contact me again. Then I turned off my phone. I was ready to meet the attorney. Ready to start dismantling, brick by brick, the life I'd built with someone unworthy of my love, my trust, or even my anger. I stayed with Chloe for 3 days. All that time, Anna Vance, my attorney, and I carefully mapped out every step. We gathered all the evidence, from financial statements to Liam's correspondence. The element of surprise is our biggest advantage, Anna explained. Once he realizes you know everything, he'll start hiding assets and covering his tracks. Liam's messages shifted from concerned to irritated to openly angry. He did file a missing person report, but the police could do nothing once I confirmed I was safe. This isn't like you, Evelyn, he wrote. Let's talk like adults. On the 4th day I saw a 2-hour off-site block on his online calendar. This was my chance. I returned to my house with Chloe and her brother, Jake, who came as witnesses. The house felt both familiar and foreign. I went straight to the bedroom. The sheets were stripped. Liam had tried to hide the evidence, only confirming his guilt. Methodically, I packed my things, taking only what unquestionably belonged to me, my clothes, personal keepsakes, items I'd inherited from my parents. Anna advised me not to touch anything that might be considered community property. In his home office, I noticed a desk drawer left ajar. Inside was a stack of letters. Handwritten letters from Olivia. Judging by the dates, their correspondence had started much earlier than I thought, almost as soon as my first symptoms appeared. You deserve someone whole, someone healthy, one note read. Someone who can match your energy. I can be that person. I photographed all the letters but left them where they were. More evidence. As soon as I closed the drawer, I heard the front door open downstairs. Liam was back. Several hours early. Evelyn, his voice floated up from the foyer, a mix of surprise and confusion. I walked down the stairs slowly. Chloe and Jake flanked me like two silent bodyguards. Liam stood in the hall. I watched his face change, shock, relief, then a cold wariness when he saw my friends and the suitcase at my feet. What's going on? He stepped toward me, but Jake blocked his path. I think you know perfectly well, I answered. Sweetheart, listen, whatever you think happened, it was a mistake. One time. I was under terrible stress, so worried about you, his eyes begged. We can't just throw everything away. I smiled bitterly at the feeble attempt. Without a word, I took out my phone and played an audio recording I'd found on his computer. Their voices filled the room. They were making weekend plans, reminiscing about past trysts, dreaming about a future. A future with no place for me. How did you find out? He stammered. I came home early, Liam. I saw everything. His confusion turned to anger. So you were spying on me? Recording my conversations? That's a violation of privacy, Evelyn. No more of a violation than what you did, I replied. Or did you forget the money disappearing from our accounts? The hotels? The secret plans to sell our house? Liam's gaze went cold. You're making this up. It must be the medication. The doctors said there could be side effects, that you might not see things clearly. That's why I didn't want to upset you. You're too sensitive right now. Gaslighting was his favorite tactic, using my condition as a weapon to make me doubt my sanity. 6 months ago, I might have believed him. Not now. Not with friends at my back and a folder of evidence in my hands. His words had no power over me anymore. I have copies of everything, Liam, I said quietly. Bank statements, your emails with Olivia, your inquiries to lawyers about how to avoid paying my medical bills after the divorce. His eyes darted from Chloe and Jake to me. His voice turned honeyed. Evelyn, ask them to leave. Let's talk calmly. We can still fix this. There's nothing left to fix, I said, lifting my suitcase. My attorney will be in touch tomorrow. I suggest you find a good one too. When I turned toward the door, his fake remorse vanished. He stepped forward to block my way. No one will believe you, he said icily. I've documented your condition this whole time. Every mood swing, every time you were distracted. I have records. And who do you think they'll believe? A successful executive who cared for his wife? Or a woman whose health makes her, shall we say, an unreliable witness? I calmly removed his hand. I think they'll believe the evidence. And by the way, I'm sure your parents will be very interested to read your messages where you call them annoying old people and complain how you can't wait to be rid of them. His face twisted. You wouldn't dare. I'm always 2 steps ahead of you, Liam, I said, heading out. I always have been. As I got into the car, he switched tactics again. He yelled after me that he would fix everything, that he'd see a therapist, that Olivia meant nothing. I didn't look back. Chloe hit the gas, and we drove away from the house that had once been my world and had now become a symbol of lies and betrayal. The next few weeks passed in a fog. My days were filled with meetings with lawyers, doctor's visits, and trying to process what had happened. I moved in with Chloe for the time being, endlessly grateful for her support and her constant reminders about my medications. Anna filed for divorce, attaching all the evidence we had gathered. Liam, in turn, hired Jonathan Ridd, a lawyer known for aggressive tactics and dragging cases out forever to wear down the other side. At the same time, Liam launched a campaign among our mutual friends. He told everyone I'd become emotionally unstable because of my condition and he had been forced to seek comfort elsewhere. Evelyn has episodes, she sees everything in black, he complained to our friend Mark, who immediately called me. The doctors warned she might start making things up. His plan might have worked. But on Anna's advice, I had already sent indisputable proof of his affair to our 5 closest friends. Not to get revenge, but to protect myself. I didn't need to say anything. The facts spoke for me. 2 weeks after I left, I drove past our house on my way to the doctor and saw Olivia's car at the gate. She wasted no time. It only confirmed what Chloe's neighbor, Susan, had already told me. Olivia openly called herself Liam's girlfriend at the office. The most unexpected call came from Liam's mother, Margaret. She had always been kind to me, but kept her distance. Evelyn, she began cautiously, Liam said you left because your thoughts have been confused by treatment. What else did he tell you, Margaret? I asked softly. That you invented his affair. That you hired a very aggressive attorney and want to take everything from him despite how he supported you. I took a deep breath. Margaret, I would never ask you to choose between me and your son. But I'll tell you the truth. I saw Liam and Olivia in our bed. With my own eyes. I have proof of their relationship for the last 6 months. And, by the way, Olivia is already living in his house. You can check for yourself. A long silence on the other end. I'm so sorry, Evelyn, Margaret said at last, her voice trembling. We didn't raise him this way. That weekend they came to see me. They brought a small photo album of the 5 years I had been part of their family. It was their way of saying I would always be dear to them despite their son's actions. He'll regret this for the rest of his life, Margaret said, hugging me tightly goodbye. While the divorce dragged on, my health faltered again. The stress triggered a flare-up, and I had to return to Dr. Chase to adjust my treatment. The fatigue and other symptoms returned, and some days I could barely get out of bed. Liam tried to pounce on it immediately. His attorney petitioned the court to grant Liam authority to participate in my medical decisions since we were still legally married. They argued that because of the flare-up I couldn't make sound choices about my health or the divorce. Anna reacted instantly. She submitted an official statement from Dr. Chase confirming that, despite my physical symptoms, my mental faculties and decision-making capacity were entirely intact. The judge denied Liam's petition and sternly warned him against using my condition as a courtroom tactic. Meanwhile, the corporate world Liam prized so much started cracking. Someone notified HR about his affair with Olivia, who was his direct report. Company policy strictly forbade such relationships without formal disclosure, and Liam had ignored that rule. Both were called in. I didn't know all the details, but rumor had it Olivia was transferred to another branch with a demotion, and Liam received a formal reprimand that effectively sidelined his ambitions for at least a year. As his own life began to crumble, his attempts to win me back grew increasingly desperate. He sent flowers to Chloe's address, wrote long letters of apology and promises to start therapy. Once he even showed up at the clinic during my appointment, claiming he just wanted to be there. Dr. Chase, who knew the situation, politely asked security to escort Liam out and helped make my future schedule confidential. I told Anna about everything, Liam's clinic visit and the fallout at work. Then, after much thought, I sent the same information to his parents. They had a right to know who their son really was. Margaret replied the same day. Her message was short: "We love you, Evelyn. We'll handle him ourselves." Later I learned they withdrew their promise to help Liam with the down payment on a new apartment he planned to buy after selling our house. His finances, already shaky from attorney fees, took another blow. 6 months into the divorce, I reached an unexpected conclusion. I was grateful for the ordeal. Not for the betrayal itself, but for the personal growth it sparked. The legal battle continued. Liam's lawyer did everything to stall, but Anna parried every move with confidence. I focused on my health. Dr. Chase referred me to a specialist in Chicago, Dr. Elias, who used a new treatment protocol. The results were remarkable. I felt significantly better, and the worst symptoms began to ease. "Your body is responding very well," Dr. Elias told me. "Emotional strain often exacerbates conditions like yours. By removing the main source of stress, it seems you finally allowed your body to start recovering." There was bitter irony in his words. Liam's betrayal, in the end, helped me become healthier. At the Chicago clinic I met a nurse named Grace. She had a rare gift, making even a hospital room feel a little cozier. Her calm, kind presence helped me a lot. One day she noticed I was down. "You know, my sister has serious health issues too," she shared. A support group helped her tremendously. "Have you considered something like that?" I said I was afraid of places where everyone talks only about diagnoses. Grace smiled. "This group is different. They don't fixate on limits. They teach you how to keep living fully, no matter what." Her words intrigued me. I decided to try. Grace was right. The group was led by a psychologist, Anna, who showed by example how to find joy while living with a serious illness. We talked about hobbies, plans, small pleasures, everything that makes life meaningful, not just what makes it hard. That's where I met James. He used to run marathons, but now struggled with severe anxiety and bouts of depression. He had an infectious laugh and a way of looking at life that resonated with me immediately. "My ex left me 6 months after I first asked for help," he told me one day. "She said she wasn't ready for that kind of difficulty. Back then it felt like the end of the world. Now I see she did me a favor. Better to learn early what your relationship is really built on." James and I often grabbed coffee after meetings. We talked about everything, and our friendship, built on mutual understanding, grew stronger. Unlike Liam, James never made me feel that my condition was a problem or that it made me less valuable. As I slowly built a new life, Liam's, from what I heard from mutual friends, was falling apart. Olivia left him for the CFO of a client company, a married man 20 years older and much richer than Liam. Liam's finances worsened. Legal bills piled up, and the house he was so eager to sell sat on a declining market. Even his parents, who had always been on his side, were now cool with him. His frantic attempts to reconcile with me showed his backup plan had failed. He wrote long letters about his personal growth and how therapy was helping. But, as Anna discovered, he had attended only 2 sessions. When that didn't work, he suddenly offered me unbelievably generous divorce terms. "Sudden generosity usually means he's in serious money trouble," Anna said. "Let's not rush a response." She was right. We soon learned Liam was drowning in credit card debt from funding a lavish life with Olivia. On top of that, because of the office scandal, his annual bonus was in doubt. Amid the chaos, a spark of creativity flared in me. After years at Apex Pharma, I'd seen how flawed patient education could be. Now, with time to think, I designed a new, simpler, and clearer concept for educational materials. What started as a few notebook sketches became a full project. I showed it to our development team. They were thrilled, and after a round of meetings with leadership, they made me an offer. The company would buy my idea for use across all product lines. The contract included a hefty lump sum and a consultant role with a revenue share. It would give me financial independence for years, even if my condition wouldn't let me work full-time. "You've turned personal hardship into a professional breakthrough," the director said as we signed. "Our industry needs exactly this kind of resilience." There was something ironic about it. My biggest career success grew out of the darkest period of my life. When spring came, I felt truly happy for the first time in a long while. Not the fragile, performative joy I'd had with Liam, but something deeper and real. James became an integral part of my life. Our friendship slowly blossomed into something more, and we didn't rush it, honoring each other's pasts and building our new relationship on honesty and support. On the day of the final hearing for our divorce, I felt neither anger nor regret, only calm resolve. My marriage to Liam had ended long before I found him with Olivia. My illness had merely exposed what was already broken. All that remained was to put the final legal period at the end of the sentence and step fully into the new, astonishing life I was building. Exactly a year from that day, I stood on the courthouse steps. In my hands was the decree dissolving our marriage. The process had dragged on for months because of Liam's endless ploys, but in the end, the undeniable evidence of his betrayal did its work. "Congratulations, Evelyn," Anna said, shaking my hand. "You went through all this with incredible grace." The final settlement was fair. We split the property, and the court ordered Liam to cover part of my medical expenses. Most importantly, I retained full rights to my new educational program, which had already begun generating revenue. My health stabilized, too. The new course of treatment Dr. Elias had selected proved surprisingly effective. My condition wasn't curable, but it was manageable. Dr. Elias even presented my case at a medical conference as an example of successful therapy. I moved into a new apartment, small but very bright, near the clinic, with a little balcony where I now grow herbs. I called it not downsizing but right-sizing, a space that gave me strength instead of draining it. The ordeal tested my friendships. Some people fell away, and the real ones stayed and drew closer. Chloe was my anchor, helping with everything from legal minutiae to doctor visits. I also reconnected with those Liam had subtly distanced me from. My college friend Megan flew out to spend a week with me. And Sarah, a former colleague now living in another city, called almost every day, refusing to let distance weaken our friendship. At the final hearing, Liam made one last desperate attempt at manipulation. He performed a whole scene of contrition, shaking voice and almost real tears. "I still love you, Evelyn," he said to the judge. "All my wrongs were born of fear. I was afraid of losing you. I was weak, scared, and made a terrible mistake. Perhaps that would have impressed someone else. Not me." The day before, I'd received screenshots of his active profiles on 3 dating sites, where he described himself as single, never married, no baggage. The judge, who had already reviewed the evidence of his lies, remained unmoved. "Mr. Davis," she said, "this is a court, not a theater. The facts in the record do not match your words. Let's proceed." Meanwhile, my professional project exceeded my boldest expectations. The idea born from a desire to improve educational materials had become a full digital platform for patients. 3 large pharmaceutical companies had already licensed it, and an IT incubator offered to help develop it further. I put part of the proceeds into a small research fund to study my condition. At the inaugural benefit, I addressed an audience of physicians and donors with a confidence I had never had before. Sometimes our hardest trials, I said, become our greatest teachers. This project grew from my personal story, but I believe it can help thousands more. Together we can change how we treat and support people with similar conditions. My friendship with James kept deepening, and we were in no hurry to label it. We found our own rhythm, cooking dinner together, going to small concerts, and talking for hours over tea on my new balcony. Never thought I'd say this, he admitted one evening, watching the sunset, but in a way I'm grateful for my anxiety. Without it, I'd never have joined that group and met you. I understood him better than anyone. My illness and Liam's betrayal destroyed the life I thought was perfect, but in return they opened a path to something far more genuine and, ultimately, happier. 3 days after our divorce was finalized, Liam called. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity won. Evelyn, he began in his most sincere tone, I know I behaved terribly. I've done a lot of work on myself and realized I lost the best person in my life. And what exactly was our life, Liam? I asked calmly. Because right now it seems to me it was love with conditions. Love that didn't survive the first real test. That's not fair, he protested. I was there for you for months. While simultaneously planning your escape and having affairs, I finished. That's not called being there. His voice shifted instantly, the familiar defensive notes creeping back. Yes, I made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But you chose to destroy 4 years of our relationship instead of getting through one difficult period. I laughed softly. There was no mirth in it, only clarity. You turned out not to be the person I thought I knew. Maybe you never were. And I'm grateful I realized it now instead of wasting more years on someone for whom I became a problem the moment I stopped being convenient. I never thought that, he muttered weakly. Your actions say otherwise, I replied. But you know what? I forgive you. Not for you. For me. I don't want to carry this bitterness into my new life. So in a way, thank you. Thank you for freeing me for something real. When I hung up, I felt the circle had closed. The anger that had kept me going in my darkest days had done its job. It gave me the strength to fight. But holding on to it any longer would only poison the beautiful future I was building. Looking back over the year, I marvel at how different my life has become. The betrayal I thought had ruined everything actually propelled a kind of growth I'd never dreamed of. My condition showed me who was truly by my side and who only said they were. Liam's deceit freed me from a marriage that was more performance than partnership. And the divorce forced me to rebuild, creating a life aligned with my own values, not someone else's expectations. Of course, the past left its marks, on my heart and on my body. But those marks aren't just reminders of hardship. They're symbols of our capacity to heal. They tell a story not of a fall, but of how we rose. Sitting in my new home, the one I shaped for my own comfort, I'm grateful for this difficult path. Yes, it was hard, but it led me to harmony with myself.